Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. Today we are talking about apprenticeships in line with National Apprenticeship Week. We're specifically talking today about the apprenticeship route we have in England, the L7 apprenticeship. So we've got a bit more information about that, and I'm going to be delighted as well today to be joined by Tanisha Bhatara. Tanisha, currently working for EY, has been going through the apprenticeship scheme in London. So lots of great information, great experience that she's coming on to speak about today. So we very much look forward to that. A couple of housekeeping rules just to cover off first of all. If you look up on the top there, you will see we've got the chat function. That's the chat box. So that's available throughout the webinar today. So if you wanted to discuss anything amongst yourselves or post any comments there, you're more than welcome to do so. Next along the line there, you'll see the Q&A as well. So delighted for you to put questions in there today. Please do. If you think of anything that you'd like to ask Tanisha, then feel free to pop it in the Q&A. We'll ask that towards the end of the webinar. On this Teams platform, everything is private. So if you are posting questions, don't worry, your name's not attached to it. There's no pictures or anything, so do feel free to come forward and post that. The session is recorded, and we will be using this. We share this with anyone who's registered, and send it out to many of our candidates who are looking for roles, so they get information. So just a reminder that it will be recorded today. And the last thing just to mention is we'll be doing a short poll at the end as well. So it'd be great to get your feedback. So if you don't mind answering that poll just before we finish. So yeah, I'd like to invite Tanisha Bhatara into the webinar as well. Hi Tanisha, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So I should introduce myself first of all as well. So I'm Jamie. I'm part of the business development team here at ICAS. Tanisha, it'd be great to come across to yourself, and if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your experience. You starting from university, what you studied, right through to getting your role and going through the qualification to this stage.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Tanisha. I went to the University of Warwick and I did English literature as my undergrad. And then I did a master's in management at Warwick Business School. And then I joined EY. So I work in the UK and I section in the London Bridge office. I work mainly with clients in the technology, media, entertainment, and telecommunications sector. I'm a senior associate. I've been there for coming up to 3 years now. So yeah, I've exam qualified now, done all of my exams. And then yeah, just got my logbook and time to do to complete the apprenticeship.
And it was Warwick University you studied at. Is that right?
Yeah.
And what was it you studied? Did you go down the accountancy route, or was it another course that you did?
No, so I did English literature for undergrad, and then I did a couple of business modules at the end of that, and then I did a master's in management at Warwick Business School afterwards, so still the University of Warwick. But yeah, so slightly unique route to accountancy.
And how did you find out about your current role? Was it recruitment support at the university, or did you see it online, or hear through friends?
My current role, I think I went to a lecture at Warwick Business School. I think they were talking about different careers for after management, because obviously management's quite a wide master's sort of course. And they were talking about different roles. They were talking about like I was looking at audit, I was looking at consulting, and then yeah, just sort of went through I just looked on the EY website to see what they were offering, and then thought that audit would be a good match, and then here we are.
And prior to that, so obviously you didn't go down the accountancy degree route. It'd be interested to know, what were your thoughts in terms of what accountancy would be like, or what accountants did in comparison to the work you actually do. Was it kind of what you were expecting, or is it quite different?
Um, well, I don't know if I was just ill-informed, but when I was at university, I definitely thought accountancy was still like being sat in a dark room somewhere, like hunched over a calculator trying to work out what someone's accounts look like, which definitely is not the case what we do now. But yeah, I think I just wasn't really sure what to expect. And then when I started, I realized that it's quite a people focused role if you want it to be. So obviously, depending on what your interests are, a lot of it can be quite client facing. And I think that with the CA qualification, a lot of it, obviously you need to pass your exams, and that part of it is very academic, but there's also different parts to it, such as the off the job learning that you have to do, which focuses on more sort of making you more of like a well-rounded person while you're becoming an accountant. So you're looking at things like leadership and building relationships, and it encourages you to be able to log that so you can look back on it, which then obviously then pushes you to then make sure that you're doing it sort of at least every month, if not every week. But yeah, definitely very different to what I was expecting.
I think you're absolutely right. I think as well, it's so important to go on and pass all the courses, but it's the personal development side of it as well. And I think I'm sure that's what employers want as well, as well, someone who's trained to the very highest level, but also a people person who can speak with clients and all sorts of different scenarios and get the best out of the role. So what I thought I'd do next, I will maybe talk briefly about the CA qualification. I've got a slide that's hopefully going to pop up on the screen here. So for those of you watching, perhaps you've seen this before. This is the CA qualification. So this is what any student who comes in to study with ICAS will cover. So in total, there's 13 assessments that you do. So you'd come in and start with us at knowledge level. You can see there's 5 assessments that you do. Some of them, so reporting performance 1, though, that's your financial reporting. You'll study that with us. That then leads into reporting performance 2 at skills level, and before then going into advanced reporting and performance. So the idea is that those are they grow in difficulty is not the right word, but they put more advanced skills as you're going through them, and they all lead into one another. You've got the taxation course where you'll get that that first-hand experience of taxation, that foundation knowledge, and then we do assurance as well, assurance where you'll cover more of the audit side of things. Knowledge level is very much, as the name suggests, it's about getting that foundation knowledge in accountancy, learning those basic skills. A lot of studying, a lot of courses and material that you'll lead through before going into the assessments there. You then progress up into the skills level. The skills courses are slightly different. It's all about taking all that core knowledge, all that everything that you've learned at that knowledge level, and then starting to apply it in professional settings. So whether you're working with clients, working with projects, it's starting to use those skills in the right way. You'll be introduced to subjects like data, risk, and technology, and then also at skills level, you'll see you or your employer will choose one of these elective subjects. So there's advanced taxation, data analytics and insights. That's all about being able to recognize and use data, whether it's putting together strategies or something along those lines. Innovation for growth and transformation. That's working with your clients, being able to spot opportunities or gaps in the market and being able to utilize those with your clients. And then sustainability for accountants as well. Sustainability obviously becoming more and more relevant in today's business. So it's getting the tools and skills that you need to be able to record and account for sustainability within businesses. And after that, normally within your 3rd year, you go into the integration level. So at the integration level, that's where you will you're going to do your case study. So it's all about drawing upon all that knowledge that you've covered, all the skills that you've learned, and you put that together in a case study. So very important that you go on to pass these 13 courses, but equally important is that blue bar, right, or purple bar rather, right along the bottom there. That's your relevant practical experience. That's all about recording the time that you're spending with your employer, gaining all that valuable experience. Tanisha, you'll have gone through. You've covered these courses and working through your practical experience. It'd also be good if you didn't mind telling us a little bit more about you mentioned already briefly some of the the extra learning and support you do as part of the apprenticeship scheme, and some of the behavioural points that you'll cover and record as you go through.
Yeah, so I think probably yeah. So when you first start, um, with ICAS, obviously you go sort of straight into college with I think most employers that's how it works. So when you first start, you have like an initial skills conversation with your like counselor or someone in the workplace. And that sort of covers your practical experience of if you've worked before, or if for me, if you're coming straight from university, just sort of like what would be interesting to you, what sort of clients you wanted to work with. So you have that straight away, and then you go into your tuition for the qualification. I think, I mean, one thing I would say for the qualification, what even though obviously it looks quite overwhelming, quite a few exams, for me, what was quite nice to know is when you first start, they're teaching everyone at the exact same level. So even if you've done accounting at uni or if you've not done accounting at uni, I think that was a quite nice thing to know before going into it, because it didn't feel like you were missing out or starting off sort of behind anyone else. Um, so yeah, from your initial skills conversation, you'll set targets. So when you come out of college and you start working, you'll have specific things you're looking to work towards, and they'll be aligned with the practical experience that you need. So there's different aspects to it. So I mentioned building relationships and leadership as two examples. And then you also have like online learnings that you have to complete, which are specific to what you're working in. So there'll be ones about like different parts of the systems that you use, or there'll be things about different accounts that you'll be testing, or if you're doing like a stock take. And then there's also just for like different accounts that you've worked on in your work. So you'll be tracking the way that we have to do it is like 1 hour a month. So you'd say like if you sort of towards the end, if you have been like coaching someone, you could say that was an hour towards building relationships and leadership. If you had completed a learning about something which was specific to your client, if there's an account which maybe you hadn't had to do a learning on before, you would log that as an hour as well. Um, so they're sort of the extra things which you do, and then you have like progress reviews, and they sort of happen throughout the year, and that's just to make sure that you have that with your apprenticeship coach as well as with your counselor. So as long as well as making sure that on the work side you're on the right track, your apprenticeship coach also makes sure that you're logging enough hours towards different parts, and that you're like feeling as though you're being able to hit all the different things, because then when it comes to your logbook, you'd be using that to then go through and look at what you've done sort of throughout the 3 years.
You mentioned that the apprenticeship coach there. How often would you touch base with them? Are they is it quite a regular thing?
Yeah, so at the very start, you have your initial sort of chats with them, and then I think depending on how much experience you've already had before, you can meet with them sort of as often as you want to. I think for me, we at least meet at least once every 3 months. I think otherwise, like yeah, you can have it sort of yeah, it's usually quarterly. I think it's never as long as 4 or 5 months in between, but I think if you wanted to speak sooner, you can do. And they also really helpful with if you're in college and you aren't feeling like ready to sit an exam, or if you have any issues with sitting your exams, your apprenticeship coaches you'd speak to first, and then you'd go to your employer to speak to them as well. And they're quite good at being like, obviously they're not necessarily, obviously they're employed by the business, but they're not necessarily someone that you're working with every day, so they've been quite good to talk to them about advice for while you're in college, or if you like just needed some reassurance about what you're doing, they're really helpful with that as well.
And I think that's a good point. Well, I think everyone's different as well. Some people fantastic at learning quickly and going through all the material and soaking that up, but perhaps struggle a bit with applying it into the assessment. And some people
Yeah,
might be the other way around and find the learning difficult, but are good at assessment. So I think having an apprenticeship coach probably is quite good, because they'll be able to discuss as well as with your tutor and things, and
yeah,
identify any elements that you should focus on.
yeah,
Can I ask
definitely.
another question? I'd be quite interested to know, um, in terms of a balance of how much online study is there, where you were going through things yourself in comparison to classes or workshops. What's the balance, and how did you find that learning?
Yeah, I think it's slightly different now. So the first level is slightly different to when I did it, but for us in the first level, it was mainly in person, which was quite useful because for me, a lot of the stuff I was learning for the first time. So having that in-person contact was good. But then the second and third levels, I did the same as this, and they're sort of split between the different subjects. So for financial reporting, that's mainly in person, which I think was quite helpful because it's quite difficult, not difficult, but it's definitely more technical. And then for CFM, that was the second of the knowledge level I did. That was pretty much 50-50. And then the elective I did was data analytics and insights, and that was actually completely online. And I did that alongside CFM, which was quite interesting because we'd go in for CFM, and that was helpful because it was, again, very technical, quite accountancy, I guess, specific. So it's kind of more finance things, which maybe a lot of people hadn't done before. So that was good to have in person. For data analytics and insights, it was quite good to have online because you could manage your time sort of yourself. And a lot of it was using Power BI. So doing that online was good because you then could have the time to sort of explore more features that maybe weren't necessarily even on the content you just wanted to learn about them. But I think I definitely would say it's a good split. And also with the tutors, it's quite nice because even if you're going in, they're usually quite willing to sort of stay around during lunch or afterwards. So you have that in-person contact for if you like maybe you're struggling with a question or if you just need some advice on what to do. But then also having the offline days is also good because then you could email and maybe set up a call if you needed some like more one-on-one time.
Great. And sort of just taking a step back again to the beginning. I'm thinking about people on today's call, people watching this at home who might be looking for an opportunity and getting into accountancy themselves. It'd be really interesting if you can think back to the recruitment process and what that was like, and then any advice that you might have for someone looking to do the same.
Yeah, so for the recruitment process, it's again slightly different, but only because there's an extra step now. So when you first apply, obviously there's the written application, and then you'll have some online tests. So one of them is accountancy based, and another one I think is just sort of some general questions. And then after that, you have an assessment centre. So you go in person, and there's a group activity and a one-on-one interview. So that's quite I think it's because of COVID, which is why I didn't have it, but now you have it, and it's kind of nice to get to meet some of the other people that are applying. And then after that, you'll have a interview with either a director or a partner, someone a little bit higher up in the business. And then yeah, that's when they sort of then after that you would get your offers, unless you needed to do. I'm not sure that it always happens, but sometimes there's an extra interview. But yeah, so I think advice wise, I'd say definitely make sure that you're tailoring what you're applying for the company that you're looking at, because as much as audit is similar across different firms, there's definitely different things in the different, it's even, I mean, especially within the big four, there's different things that each firm is particularly good at. And I think that really comes across when you're in an assessment centre group setting or in an interview one-on-one. If you are sort of generically applying because you think you like the idea of it, maybe that won't help so much. I think definitely make sure you do your research, and then alongside that, apply for what you actually think you'd be interested in. So if audit is something that is more interesting to you, or tax is more interesting, definitely like take your time to understand that, because obviously you'll be doing the same qualifications across both, but take your time to sort of think about what it is you think you'd want to do. And then I think otherwise just make sure you're like being yourself in the interviews. Like your interviewer is seeing multiple people every day probably. Um, and I think when you're confident in what you're saying, that's definitely is when it comes across the best. But I think definitely also don't restrict yourself for what you're applying for. So obviously like I did English lit at my undergrad. I didn't think I'd be applying to accountancy 2 years later. But I think having that sort of unique background actually really helps me day to day. And like a lot of what I do is like looking at like contracts, and my English literature actually really comes in helpful because I can like read things quickly, I can synthesize information fast. So I think like definitely look at what actually are your strengths, even if they're not necessarily tailored to accounting already, and see how you can actually tailor them. And yeah, as I said, like a lot of what we do is people based. So when you're applying and you're interviewing, definitely use that to your advantage. And if that's something that you're comfortable with and that's something you're confident in, definitely show that, because even if you haven't got a first class accountancy degree, it might be something that you can use your other skills for in place of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's just something I do quite a lot. So I speak to a lot of employers, and when you talk about recruitment, it's exactly what you say. What they're looking for, is people who just, clearly know what they want to do and that have done that research. Particularly like someone in a similar position to yourself that hasn't necessarily studied accounting and going into it. But if you come into that interview and you can show that you've done quite a bit of research into the, different parts of it, different types of accounting that you can do, and you've worked out which one your skills will be most suited to and think you'd be best at, having that pre-knowledge, and you've done that, I think that really stands out, and shows people that you're genuinely quite interested and keen to progress into something like that. Um, so that was great. You got your position with EY. Actually, did you do you maybe, I think coming out of COVID, maybe missed, because I know EY do a great induction day. I don't think you maybe didn't have that, did you, or was there
Yeah,
something?
we had like a one, I think it's one day in person, half day online, or the other way around. Which is quite nice because it's like everyone across the different departments comes together for the induction day. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's I've been down for the last two, so I went for the September last year and the year before. It's a great event. They have it down in a big expo and a big like event centre down in London. And they throw so much out. It's very welcoming. So many staff come and join in, and just a great way to meet all the different students. It's a nice thing to be part of. We go down to talk about EY, ICAS, and talk about the qualification itself, to give
Yeah.
people that sort of knowledge. Um, so then, yeah, great, you got that role. So I'd be interested to know just your experience so far, particularly, you are working a busy full-time role, but balancing that with your studies. So, how have you found that apprenticeship scheme, um, and how do you find that sort of the balance between working, studying, and making sure you've got time for personal life as well?
Yeah, it's definitely a shock to the system after university. But I think, so when we first start, as I say, you sort of start and go straight into college. So you do your first set, and then you go into busy season for most people, which is like after the December year end when a lot of your client work will happen. So I think when I first started, it was quite like the idea of it was quite scary, like knowing that you had that many exams. But I think the main thing which has been like really comforting to me throughout the whole process is there's just so many people to support you. And not only, I think what helped me in the first set of exams was speaking to the tutors about like I'm juggling 4 or 5 different subjects which I might not have studied before. Sort of what do I do? And they're all really helpful because obviously this is their job. Like they know that it's overwhelming. They know that there's a lot of content to cover. There's questions to do, and they were really helpful with explaining sort of like the best ways to manage your time and like um different, maybe one part of one subject needs a little bit less energy than another part. So like maybe pairing that with a day, which like pairing one subject's low day with another subject's high day, which was helpful because then you weren't sort of constantly having to stay on. And then throughout the week balancing your time. So I think they encourage you to sort of only spend like 4 to 5 hours on the weekend on your studying and then sort of balance that out however you want to. And that was always really helpful because it was sort of a good reminder that like if on a Saturday you wanted to get all of your studying in, then on Sunday take the day off just to reset. It's always a good sort of way to do it, or like maybe in the mornings both days depending on what you want to do. And then when we start working, for ICAS, it's quite good because the way that EY do it is you haven't really got much crossover between working and studying. So it's usually done, college is done in blocks. So then that means that when you're working, you can sort of focus on just having to work. And then your team will have all been sort of through the exact same exams as you, if not ICAS, something else. But I think it's always good to have that relationship with them of saying, like, I've just been in college, like, what's the best way for me to manage my time, or like can you explain, because working and doing college obviously is very different. You might not be doing a 9 to 5 every day when you're studying. And then I think another thing which is really helpful with EY's apprenticeship is you also have a buddy, and that'll be someone in the year above you, and they'll have literally done the exams that you're doing the year before you. So when you get to speak to them, they'll always have really good advice, and they'll always be able to help you with sort of managing, not even managing your time, but just managing the like workload. Like you were saying, like mentally, it can be, I need to study, I need to work, I need to have time for myself. But I think, yeah, having that buddy relationship is also good. But I think for me, like, it's mainly just making sure that whenever I'm planning my week, it's to literally set aside hours where I'm just seeing my friends or I'm seeing my family. I think it can be quite easy to get sort of overwhelmed by these things, but I think breaking things down, whether it's within your subject, breaking down the topics that you need to cover, or at work, breaking down your tasks, that's what makes it easier to sort of digest and then produce good work.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's lots of little study tips there, and what one that I think that comes up as well that I think is quite good is the different, as you mentioned there. So it's so different to uni. Uni, sometimes you can feel like you've got all the time in the world before your
Yeah,
assessments, but 3-4 weeks out from assessment at ICAS isn't an awful lot of time because you're still working
no.
full time off within that. So actually, the amount of hours you've got left, you got it's planning ahead
Yeah,
and
definitely.
using those hours wisely. But that's great. But I think coming back to it, I think a great thing with this type of learning on the apprenticeship scheme is that all that learning that you're doing, you'll be putting into practice straight away. Do you see that in your work? Do you know things that you'll be learning throughout
Yeah,
the ICAS
definitely.
qualification? Do you see, is it straight into you'll see it applied
Yeah.
sort of every day?
Yeah, I mean, especially like the very first exams with the financial reporting and whatever the assurance one is now, they sort of is exactly what you look at every single day. I mean, your debits and credits are never going anywhere in accounting, so I think it's really useful to have that foundation. And I think doing the exams first and then going into work, it really helps you feel a lot more confident with what you're doing because it doesn't feel as though you've just sort of been thrown into the deep end. Because you're like, if anything, I know that I've passed my exams on this, so I know that I have a baseline knowledge. Yeah, definitely plays into work.
And what I'd like to, what do you enjoy doing to unwind? You mentioned seeing friends and things. What's nice for you to put work and study aside? What do you
Um,
enjoy?
Yeah, well, as I say, I live in London, so I work in London now. So I'm from like the West Midlands in a little village. So it feels, even now, 3 years in, it feels very different. So I still feel like a bit of a tourist. So on the weekend, my friends and I are sort of looking for new places to go. I went to Richmond for the first time recently. I went to go see the deer. So that was quite nice. But yeah, it feels like there's like always something to do. And then I sort of live and work in London Bridge. So I've got a lot of friends sort of from work who are from the area as well. So nice to like get recommendations from them. Otherwise, yeah, just sort of try to like stay active. Yeah, see my friends.
Yeah. The other thing you might go to become part of soon is the London area network that we have with ICAS as well. So as a CE member, we have lots of events down there, lots of whether it be dinners or catch ups or speakers and things. So it's always a nice thing to be part of, and uh, networking such a big part of accountancy, and joining these networks is a great thing to do. Um, so just coming back to the qualification, I'd I'd be quite interested to hear what you think. You hear these, um, but a lot of people talk about that you have to be good at maths to be an accountant. But what would you say from what you've gone through so far are the key skills that someone should have to really be successful in accountancy?
That's a good question. I'd say um having, so obviously I've mentioned before about the communication skills, the
Yeah,
interpersonal
yeah,
skills. I'd say when you're actually working, that's definitely something that's really that comes into it. But I'd say making sure that you've got like a problem solving mindset. So even when you're doing your exams, a lot of the way that the questions are worded are problem solving, having like pay attention to detail. So even like at the study level, like are you reading every single part of the question before you're going to answer it? Are you understanding your case study fully before you go to look at what the questions could be? Um, yeah, I wouldn't say obviously you need to have a level of maths, but maths was never my strong suit. My parents would still laugh at me about it. They'd be like the tears I cried at GCSE maths, and then now I'm becoming an accountant. I'd say it's definitely just sort of like having the belief in yourself that like, okay, I've done what I need to get to this point, and now pick up as much of the knowledge that you need from your tutors. And I think what's important when you're studying is what you're being taught is exactly what you need for the exams. I think at university there's a tendency to, the wider you research, the more you look, the more that helps you. Whereas for these exams, like there's no need to learn extra things on the side because like what your tutor is teaching is exactly what you need. What's in the textbook is exactly what is necessary for the qualification. That's quite different to university mindset when you're studying. So Yeah, I think, I'd say they're probably the key
Mm.
skills that you need. Yeah.
What another one we hear quite a lot of is curiosity as well. So asking lots of questions. I mean, you've talked already about the having your buddy and as well as
Yeah.
your colleagues there and the apprenticeship manager and things. So I think it's using the resources and don't wait to ask questions and to
Yeah,
learn more and find
definitely.
out more and gain those extra experiences. Which kind of leads me on to my next question. I like to think students are quite well supported as they're going through the scheme. You've talked about having a buddy and apprenticeship manager and things. Your training will be delivered by, so BPP are our training provider in England who deliver the ICAS qualification to you. So you've got them supplying you with support and work EY supplying you with support as well. It'd be good to know, is there any other sort of forms that you would say of sort of forms of support that you've had along the way?
Yeah, I feel like there's always someone to speak to, sort of whatever level you're at, even when you first start with your exams. So, like I mentioned, so you get your buddy before you start, actually, even at college. So the first person you speak to, you have your apprenticeship coach, you have a counselor from work, and they're like they'll be for like a manager within your sort of department, but they obviously have had people going through the exams as well, so they're very useful for advice. Then you have each subject has different tutors. So they're also really helpful because even if you're not being taught by them for that subject, they can also help with like just general advice. There's discussion boards on the ICAS website where you can post questions and various tutors manage it sort of throughout the day. So you'll always sort of get a response for those, and they could be general like exam queries or like specific technical questions. There's definitely an email address that I can't remember what it actually is for, but it's like an ICAS support
Yep.
email where you can ask for if you need help with like deferring or if you need help with like extra additional requirements for the exams. And then yeah, as I say, like even just like your cohort, like you'll be studying with people
Hmm.
that have various levels, and I think that's really helpful. Like obviously I didn't have an accounting background, but I sat with people that did. So for some things, like they were just really helpful just to explain like just the most basic things. And I think another thing which is different to university is like no one's being graded against each other. Like your grade is your grade, and like whether you pass or fail is dependent on that. Whereas I think at university it can become like a competition of like being graded against a curve and like I can't help you because I need to do better or whatever. But I think especially with this qualification, it's good to know that everyone is sort of working together for their own sort of winning. And that's quite nice because then everyone sort of can help each other. Like maybe someone's got some really good notes and they can share. And I think you're each other's best resources when it comes to like support. And then obviously, yeah, when you start working, you have your actual team. And as I say, like everyone is an accountant, like everyone has been through these exams. They know the stress of it. They know that like when you're going to college, you might need to leave a bit earlier because you're like studying that kind of thing. Yeah, a lot of support, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, you covered everything. So it's the technical support for the actual qualification. Students at icas.com, that's the email you're after, I think. So they're there for any support questions about your enrollments and registrations and things. I think that's a great point as well about actually your fellow students. You know, your cohort being a sounding board if you're not sure on something. Someone else might have be able to explain it to you, and vice versa. I always think as well when you're in class and things, if people have questions, actually hearing other people's questions is quite good
Yeah,
because it might be something you've not thought of yourself. So
yeah,
it's making use
definitely.
to all that. I'd
And
also like to
the
add, we hope no one ever has to use it, but we do have the well-being support as well. So we did talk about it. It is quite challenging at times because you're working a full-time role and balancing that with a master's level qualification. So it's worth mentioning we've always got a well-being support platform to access. So you can call trained counsellors 24/7, 365 days a year. That's at the other end of the phone, or you can message them via a web chat. But on that platform as well, there's lots of support in terms of just keeping your mind healthy. So there's that side as well.
Yeah, I was going
Um,
to say BPP and EY and ICAS all have
oh,
wellbeing
got it.
support
Oh, good.
systems as well. And like with the EY specifically, they send out like wellbeing emails as well. So then there's like different like external places where you can go. And then yeah, just in the BPP and ICAS side, they also have the tips for managing the stress, managing the qualification.
And actually that reminds me as well. So from the very beginning as well, anyone with reasonable adjustments is able to apply for that as well. So if someone might require extra time in an assessment or something along those lines, we can get that all organised and in place prior to you even starting with on your qualification journey. I've got one more question. It looks like we might have some questions in the Q&A as well, but just to sort of recap, you're almost at the end of your CA journey, but just any other advice that you might have someone starting on theirs. We talked about how they can get a role, get hopefully an apprenticeship role. But any advice you might have prior to them starting out on their journey?
I'd say just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Sort of like I said at the start, if there's something which you think maybe you're like 90% there, but you're not going to go for it because you're not 100%. Like there'll be people applying who are like 60% there, but have put themselves out there. And so then I think that's definitely the way to look at it is like, what can you do? And also, I don't think any role is expecting you to be 1,000% the perfect person because that doesn't exist. And whenever people are going through job applications, I think just make sure that you're as confident as you can be with your own abilities. Don't try and compare yourself to, well, this person's applying and they have this background. Whatever you can take, whatever you can bring is what the employer will want to see. And I think stay positive, stay curious, like keep looking for things which interest you, and yeah, just put yourself out there sort of wherever you can. And then when you get to work, I'd say my biggest piece of advice is always like stay connected with people and stay people from university, people who you like, your tutors from uni, people that you've studied with, and when you start working, people you work with, make sure you're like building those connections. I think it can be really helpful at times where you don't even realize that you're building something important. And I think having support networks is one of the like most important things, especially when you're studying and working at the same time. Yeah, I'd say that's my advice.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions, so we'll go to them if you don't mind. The first one that's come in here is, how social is EY as a place to work?
Very social, I'd say. Like I said, so there's so many different networks of people that you know. So you have the people that you're in college with, and they might not necessarily be even from your office. They could be from, like, say when I was in the London Bridge office, and there are people from the Canary Wharf office in there as well. And I might not have met them if it wasn't for college. So there's sort of that's the first level. And then there's always like departmental events going on, there's sports networks, there's like various different like other networks within the firm. Um, and there's sort of always something going on.
I got another one here that's come through. So it's good to hear it's a level playing field between accounting and non-accounting graduates in training and in the workplace. Now I think you did touch on this slightly already, but what strengths do you think you brought in as an English literature graduate? I know you mentioned like being able to read quickly, but anything else that you feel that you brought in as an English lit grad and that you were able to bring to the table, I guess?
Try and think back to my application, what I was saying. I'd say I mean, I think one of the main things is probably like my attention to detail and like analytical reviewing of things. So when I'm looking at things, I'm probably looking at things with a lot more I'd say like from an outside perspective, in that if I'm looking at something new for the first time, I'm not immediately going to the numbers and looking like, oh, well, this minus this makes this difference. I'd be looking at like, why is that the case? And when I'm a lot of what you do in audit isn't just 1 + 1 is 2. So then is that good or bad? There's like loads of different things to it. So you do like significant contract reviews, you look at analysis of like significant people who are working there. I think there's a lot more to it, which with my background, I found that it's sort of like a more holistic understanding of what I was doing. And then I think also like with my masters, so doing it in management, that commercial thinking really plays into it. So looking a lot more of the bigger picture rather than just focusing on sort of smaller things all the time. I think otherwise, like I'd say the attention to detail probably is a key thing. Yeah. I
And I
can't think
think
of anything
that's
else.
what's nice, and that's why organisations quite often look to people who have might have some might have an accountancy degree, some might have come from a non-accounting background, and together getting that
Yeah,
variety and that mix, you're going to get a whole breadth of skills.
definitely.
Do you think you needed the masters to be able to apply for your graduate role?
So you don't actually need a master's to apply for the graduate roles, and obviously you can even go for the school leaver route, which is you don't even need the undergrad degree. I think for me it helped because I just don't think I was ready to go into work yet. I think I wanted to study a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think there was still like, I mean, yeah, I think maybe it was something to do with being a COVID graduate. But I think also I literally I'd done a couple of business modules in my third year, but I hadn't really done much finance. So doing that master's qualification definitely gave me the confidence and obviously the actual skills of doing more finance stuff, but not necessarily. I don't think you need the master's to do it.
I've got another one just come in here, quite an interesting one actually. How are you encountering AI in the workplace, and are you fearful for the role of accountants in the future?
Oh, interesting. Topical question. AI in the workplace. So EY has its own AI called EYQ, and that's sort of like an inbuilt platform which you can ask. It's intuitive to our system, so you can ask it things about the systems that we use. It is really helpful. It's a lot like Copilot, ChatGPT, but it has like the internal knowledge. And then we use Copilot as well for like just like the normal things that everyone does of like how can I make this email sound better. We were having a discussion earlier. I'm not fearful for the role of accountants in the future. I think the role is just evolving, and I think the role evolving is a lot of why I wanted to do it in the first place. And it's that, like I said at the start, like it's not just being able to sit down and like use a calculator, because obviously like even Excel can do that quicker than a human can. But a lot of what audit is the client side of it. And it's, even if you've been given this information, is it real? Is it correct? Do we think that it's been, yeah, I mean, has it come from AI on the other side of it? And then, can you build that relationship with a client where they actually want to send you things and it's the correct thing the first time? They've not just been quick and been like, oh, I'll just send them this random email. I think that aspect of it can never really be taken over. And I think also it's important to know that when you're using information from AI, like obviously that has to be checked. You can't just sort of use it straight away and say, okay, yeah, this will be correct. Because I mean, even just like small things like you'll put in, I've tried just like putting in like numbers before and being like, can you like order it in a specific way for me just to like just test it, and it will do it wrong, and I'm thinking, well,
Yeah.
I've just asked you to do something, but you can't always 100% just trust it. Yeah,
I think
hopefully we
that's
don't look back
exactly
at
it.
this and say, "Oh no."
I think it's a great vehicle. I remember hearing someone using the analogy. It's a bit like a plane. It's a fantastic thing to be able to have and be able to use, but you still need that pilot. You still need that
Yeah,
human to be able to drive it and make sense of it, and
yeah,
make sense of the output.
definitely.
Um, I think, if you don't mind, we've got time for one more. There's one more just here that's come through that I think would be quite a nice one. Just to finish with, was it intimidating going out to clients initially when you first started, and having to ask difficult questions?
Um, yeah, so I'm quite an extroverted person, so I think probably for me it felt like it was fun at first, just like go meet new people. But it was definitely, I think there's an aspect of feeling like you don't know enough before you go to a client meeting, or even like with like my managers at the very start, I would feel like yeah, like I'm happy to like have like the chatty side of it, but when it comes to actually talking about the work, I'd be like, well, I'm not sure if I know enough. But I think there's just so much support around you, and like you'll never, when you first start working, you'll never go to a meeting by yourself. You'll always have like someone who's been there for at least 1 or 2 years longer than you to be there as you're sort of, even if they're not speaking and it's you doing that meeting, they'll be there just to sort of help you out. I think I've been very lucky with the team that I've been in, and like all the teams I've worked on actually that have been very supportive. And also, I think you learn so much day to day. Like every day, you become more confident to go to the client because you pick up so much knowledge. Um, so yeah, I think yes,
Yeah, so
intimidating. I think
it's
yeah,
daunting, but you've got all the tools you need to be able
yeah,
to do it, and
definitely,
you experience it very quickly, and
yeah.
get up to that level. Um, Tanisha, has been so helpful and useful. Been so nice to chat to you, and so interesting to hear your story and